Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Maryland's Senate race to replace Barbara Mikulski begins to heat up. Baltimore Sun reports that an additional 534 undocumented border kids are headed to Montgomery County. How much will this cost the taxpayers? Baltimore Sun also thinks Maryland Democrats should be worried about Republican Governor Larry Hogan's 63% approval rating. And just in time for Christmas, a ruling on the Bladensburg cross. Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of the Montgomery County branch of the NAACP, Henry Hailstock, conservative political commentator and Republican National Committee woman for Maryland, Nicolee Ambrose, former Republican candidate for delegate, Uncapher, and education activist, Cynthia Rubenstein. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. It's not surprising in Maryland politics, which, if you don't know, is heavily dominated by Democrats. When there's a Democratic primary for statewide races, it gets a lot of attention. In the race to succeed retiring U.S. Senator Barbara Mikulski, the competition between Congressman Chris Van Hollen and Congresswoman Donna Edwards has dominated the headlines. But now, as the filing deadline looms, two strong Republicans seem to have emerged, indicating that the GOP may still be viable yet here in the old Free State. Henry, in the race to replace Barbara Mikulski, the Baltimore Sun continues to report that recently released polls have Mr. Van Hollen building a lead over Miss Edwards. But they point out that neither one is the first choice of the survey. Most Democrats are hoping that Congressman Elijah Cummings would enter the race. What's your assessment of the contest?
Well, as far as Elijah Cummings is concerned, I believe he's the people's choice. He's always been a strong leader. He's always been out there in the community. He's always been working with people to...
Well, Nicolee, the House of Delegates Minority Whip Kathy Szaleja seems to be the strongest of a rather weak, uninspiring field of candidates. Yet this week, there was an announcement by former Ehrlich aide Chris Kafalis that he's joining the race. What do you make of this new entrant into the primary?
I'd actually say we have a really strong field of candidates running. We have Richard Douglas, Chris Kafalis, Kathy Szaleja, and there are more as well looking at getting into this race. So it's going to get interesting. We technically have more than the Democrats running. And I think what it comes down to, we will not know until next September, October, which way this race is going to go. I think both Governor Hogan and Governor Ehrlich proved it is possible for a Republican to win statewide here. So let's see if it's possible with the Senate.
It's going to be really a race if Elijah decides to go in.
Well, when's he going to make up his mind?
Well, he still has time.
He's got till January, right? He's got another 30 days. But what's he waiting for?
Let him get over the holidays, let him get a feel for it, let him check with his family.
He's in a really good position,
yes.
So he does not have to hurry any announcement.
That's right.
Well, and do you really think he's going to give up his House of Representatives seniority?
It's possible. That's what he's weighing on now.
Yeah.
That's what he's weighing on now to see what the advantage on. And it's a possibility if he feels strongly that he will win, yes, he'll give it up to get that Senate seat. Absolutely.
Well, I kind of agree with Nicolee. I don't quite understand the advantage of at his age wanting to serve in the Senate when he does have all this seniority in the House, and he's in a powerful position in the House.
Oh, yes, he is. But he has to see what his people are talking about, weigh his options, and see what the advantages and disadvantages are.
Well, so
and that's what he's doing now.
It's interesting that we've concentrated a lot on Elijah, and he hasn't even announced his candidacy.
Right.
In the race with Van Hollen and Edwards, Robin, which candidate do you think is emerging as the strongest? I mean, certainly Emily's List announcement this week that they were putting close to $1 million into the race, most of which will support Donna Edwards, has to be a game changer.
Well, I wouldn't vote for either of them, so it's hard for me to say. But
well, thank you for your honesty.
well, but I think Van Hollen has great name recognition, and certainly people know of him and know what he does. So that's a huge strength for him, no question.
And
about
he
it.
has built so many relationships and accomplishments. He just received, he continues to receive endorsements based on his record and how he has helped groups.
Yeah, well, but
His
wait a minute,
individual constituent service is
Is
not great. It is not even close to
Oh,
it.
I've heard
But then,
otherwise.
let's talk about the reality is. I mean, the reality is the state of Maryland has always been geographic politics. We've had the city of Baltimore dominating the state for most of its history, and until very recently, Montgomery County never even had a whiff of the possibility of a statewide election. So what's changed now? Why? I mean, Don Edwards is from Prince George's County, and we have a strong candidate from Montgomery County. Has there been a power shift? Henry?
Basically, I would say yes. It was about, if you remember, Donna Edwards had part of Montgomery County in there until they changed it somewhat. But in Montgomery County, yes, our delegates, our senators are stepping up.
Well, who's going to get Baltimore City and bring that into the fold?
Well, I still say Van Hollen is strong. And Van Hollen has done a lot to reach out and reach across the borders to help out. And if you notice what he's been doing, not only on Capitol Hill, but in the community, not only in Montgomery County, but he has made partnerships in other areas as well.
Well, hold on to that thought, Nicolee, because we're going to go into another aspect of Maryland politics, which applies to the Republican Party. Because in a recently released Baltimore Sun, University of Baltimore poll, it concluded that Republican Governor Larry Hogan is, get this everybody, wildly popular even among Democrats who disagree with his policies, and gave Hogan a 63% favorable rating, exceeding that of even Barbara Mikulski. Cynthia, one of the poll's respondents, is quoted as saying that Larry Hogan is looking out for the interests of people like me. What do you make of that?
Well, I've read.
You wouldn't vote for him either, would you?
I wouldn't vote for him either. He's a nice guy, but I wouldn't vote for him. But a lot of people have responded to the lowering of the bridge tolls. That's a major coup for him, for folks. And he also is still in the honeymoon period. And people have also been impressed by the fortitude he's shown while he went through his cancer treatment. So I call it a continuing honeymoon effect. Just wait till this legislative session gets underway.
All right. Well, Henry, according to the poll, Hogan's support among the African American community is at 45%. But why is that? Since generally they're affected by the same economic issues that are leading the reason behind Hogan's popularity.
Well, the majority of African Americans, as you know, in the state are Democrats, for one. Number two, to me, it's a wait and see. Right now, it's not the honeymoon, it's the engagement. And waiting to see what he is going to do. Right now, particularly in Baltimore, the red line was canceled. They didn't like that. They put a bus line, the green line, I believe they called it, that they're not really happy about that. And basically taking away the educational money that the legislation passed.
So we'll take a wait and see attitude.
Yes.
Now, Nicolee, let's tie this all together. Coming back to you. Does Hogan have coattails that can apply to the Senate race, as well as leading Maryland into a more centrist kind of government stance?
Absolutely, and I really think you also have to look at the trend, right? Here we are in the 21st century, and 2 of the 3 governors we have elected in the 21st century have been Republicans. This is no longer a reliably blue state, and thank heavens. Here we were under O'Malley, we suffered tremendous job loss. The only thing that kept us afloat was the federal government, and as we all know, we send our tax dollars to make that happen. We need jobs where people actually produce things, and we are finally seeing that again under Larry Hogan. So I think people are excited to have a governor that provides jobs because he lets the economy grow and people do their thing and live their lives.
So, Robin, are you in agreement with Nicolee on this?
Absolutely, I am. Well, except that I really think that O'Malley is just God's gift to Hogan because because I don't think there are any more honeymoon periods. I mean, I think the English muffin period ended ages ago. But I do think when you talk just about issues to people without saying this is a Democratic issue, this is a Republican issue, and it's a local issue, people think about what that issue is. And one of the issues they thought about with O'Malley was the lack of jobs. And it was absolutely ridiculous to blame a lack of jobs in a state dominated by government contracting to say that the lack of jobs had anything to do with the recession.
But Cynthia, was as Robin has said, that Governor O'Malley and his economic policies may have helped Larry Hogan, but isn't the truth also that because he was successful in getting a lot of social legislation passed that was very controversial during the Ehrlich administration, that Hogan is benefiting from that lack of issues that are traditionally being fought out in the General Assembly?
Yes, and I'll say one thing for the governor. He has taken a very low-key approach to some wedge issues that are current, including undocumented children. He has not moved to rock the boat with the support for undocumented children coming into Montgomery County and coming into the state. So he's being very wise right now and low-key, and issues have not come up that would cause him to have to make a stand that would be very unpopular.
So
far.
Nicolee, I want you to wrap this up. When Governor Ehrlich was running against Mr. O'Malley the first term, he had a 50% approval rating, and that wasn't good enough. So what's going to happen here?
So Ehrlich had over a 56% approval rating at the time. I think his biggest problem was he didn't trumpet the $6 billion he saved Maryland taxpayers. That's all his campaign should have been. Were it that, he would have won. So I think you also have to look at, speaking of the legacy Martin O'Malley left us, 7% of Marylanders support Martin O'Malley for president. So obviously he did a horrible job with the state. He proves what you get with Democrat leadership.
Wait a
So
minute.
If we had
encourage
time, I
Montgomery
would jump
Countyans
in.
to
We
give
gotta-
I would jump
Republicans
in
a
and talk
chance.
about that.
Unfortunately, but the good news is it's a long time before next November and the election. And we can talk about this every week.
Every
single week. Thank goodness for a topic.
Ad nauseam.
When we come back from this short break, the continuing question about taking in unaccompanied border children and a resolution for the Bladensburg Cross. Stay tuned after this short break. And welcome back. Last week, the Baltimore Sun reported that another spike in the number of undocumented children arriving in the U.S. from the southwest border will have a disproportionate impact on Maryland. As reported in the Sun, Maryland took in 3,800 so-called border kids in 2014, and another 1,700 thus far in 2015, the majority of which are absorbed in Montgomery and Prince George's County. The article concludes that an additional 534 children will be located in Montgomery County as a result of this latest surge. At the same time, the Montgomery County Executive, Isaiah Leggett, and the Montgomery County Council affirmed the county's position to welcome additional refugees from Syria. Robin, a study prepared by the Federation for Immigration Reform in 2011 concluded that Montgomery County taxpayers each pay, on average, $1,400 in taxes to support the cost of illegal immigration. How much longer can the county afford to keep this open door policy?
Well, I think we have to cut back on some of the other ridiculous spending we're doing so that we can welcome people from Syria and welcome people and do our best to help border children. I don't really think this is an economic issue. First of all, I'm not sure that I accept the figures there. I would love to have them evaluate the cost of the staffs of the county council, however. I think that the amount of money that we've spent on ridiculous salaries for people in this county could easily take up that. I was in Greece last week, and let me tell you, that's a poor country, and those people are doing their best to help Syrian refugees. I was there when 2,600 Syrian refugees have arrived. They are opening up the Olympic Village for people. They have started refugee camps. These are people who can really not afford very much. In Montgomery County, we have a lot of money. We can use it better, and we can take care of children.
Okay. Cynthia, there is a humanitarian issue, as Robin has pointed out, but there is a fiscal issue as to the cost of how we continue to support these families. How do we correct the balance?
I think we focus entirely on the humanitarian issue. These are children who are fleeing countries where they're being threatened and forced into gangs, and girls are being threatened with rape. And you do not send an unaccompanied minor unless you are terrified to keep them in their home countries.
There's been refugee issues throughout the time of history.
But what's happening in Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador now is horrendous, and it is not getting better.
Why is it the
getting
responsibility
worse.
of the United States to take these people in?
If they arrive here, it is our responsibility to treat them humanely and to provide resources until we can determine whether or not they should be able to stay.
This country
but you
was-
have to do the humane thing.
Are we doing the humane thing in Baltimore City or Chicago with children living in poverty? They don't have breakfast, they don't have lunch, and here we're going to take in another country's children when we're not even taking care of our
let's
own?
talk about that, because I
Well,
think
yeah,
it's
let's
the
talk about that.
institution that needs to regroup. And forgive me, but I am surprised that I agree with Robin that we need to do a better job of funding our money in the correct manner, in a way, because that's the biggest problem. Yes, we have people here that need to be fed, that need to be educated.
but here's the question I wanna
problem
ask.
is that we were built on taking refugees
Okay.
from other countries because we were founded on that. We believe in freedom. Okay.
I don't know if we were
In the
founded on
United
that.
States-
Yes, we were.
But here, there is also an issue. There are refugee issues all across the world. There are refugees that need to be in Palestine. There are refugees in Lebanon. The Christian communities in Syria, Iraq are being devastated.
Yeah.
These people aren't being brought to the United States.
These are very small
there
numbers
are
of people.
people being persecuted
Because we
these
let
people-
them
all over
be
the world.
killed.
Some of these people don't want to
These
come
are
here.
very
okay?
small numbers of people coming here. It
What
doesn't even begin.
What makes the difference between what's going on in Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala any different than what's happening over in the Middle East? There's none, except the fact that they can walk here.
They're not
Some
walking.
people-
They're
some-
making very difficult journeys, riding the tops of trains, wading rivers. It's
This
an arduous
is such
journey.
a small
it's not
number
an
of
easy
people.
thing.
You know, in these countries, obesity is not a marker for poverty. It is in the United States. That is very different. When you talk
But
about people in the United States who
are you in favor of just open borders, Robin?
no, not necessarily. But I'm not going to kick 500 children out of Montgomery County.
All
That's
of us
a
are
whole other
immigrants, okay?
story.
You need to understand that all of us are immigrants here. This country was built on immigration, okay? Why should we ignore what we were founded
Henry,
on? Number
we
one.
have
Number
not
two,
we have
let
not
me
always
finish.
had open immigration policies.
We have had open
no,
immigration
there's
policy.
never been
You
open
don't-
immigration policies in the
I
United
don't think
Is that
anybody's
right?
calling for
There
open
is-
If you
immigration.
go
We're
back
not
in, you
calling
go
for
back into
immigration
history,
here.
you will see that we did have open.
There was no restrictions on who could come into the United States.
Exactly. You look at that.
But
Look, it
Casey, you're
takes-
overstating
It
it.
takes longer now. It takes longer now, 18 to 24 months to come over here, all right,
As a refugee.
legally,
Legal.
legally as a refugee. Okay.
So-
Now, you look back in history, it was a shorter period of time. So you cannot tell me that we are
There's a
just
vetting, there's a
whole
vetting
lot.
process on the refugees. I will grant you that.
Yes.
But there is no vetting process on the people coming up from the southern border and crossing into the United States.
And as I said again, I agree with Robin on we need to work on our policies, on our institution.
And we have a problem, I think, on vetting across the board. Whether it's Syrian refugees and Americans not trusting the process our government is using for that, or how it processes children on the border,
Well,
where 75% of them are, boys close to 18.
Let's not talk
These are
about us
issues
not
that
Well,
have to be
all right.
trusting the
we're gonna-
vetting.
we're gonna
A lot of
wrap-
people don't know about the vetting process, and they just going to take for granted what they want to know. The public needs to be educated properly on what the procedures are. You have the top federal government agencies working on this, and when you have 18 to 24 months before you can come over here legally, that's a long time.
Well, we've combined a lot in this one topic, and obviously we're not going to solve this because this process has been a continuing problem for probably 2 decades. So not just a instant because there are children crossing the southern
Well, it's
border.
been a problem.
You're right, it's been a problem.
Yeah, because we
And
don't
we're-
do a
and-
good job
Henry-
in processing.
I think we'll all agree on that we all agree that there hasn't been a good job on processing.
No, it hasn't.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. We kind of have a rather lighthearted topic, which is about whether or not a cross is a religious symbol and should be banned from the public space. And there was a decision this week by federal district court judge Deborah Chasnow, who ruled that the Bladensburg cross, which stands at the intersection of Maryland Route 450 and U.S. Route 1, is not a governmental endorsement of religion, even though she conceded that the Latin cross is undeniably a religious symbol. Nicolee, was the decision the correct decision?
I really appreciate the judge's thoughtful decision. I thought it was very well worded. I thought she did a great job. What really concerns me is that we are spending this much time attacking war memorials that were raised with private funds by the American Legion nearly 100 years ago.
I got to
Instead
get
of
someone else in before we get cut off. Henry, was it the right decision?
Right decision.
All right. When we come back, stay tuned for parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Henry Hailstock.
I want to say a surprise. Karen Montgomery, we will miss you. You've done an outstanding job here, District 14. I hope that your retirement doesn't mean that you will be out of sight, out of mind. Please stay with us.
Thank you, Henry. Nicolee Ambrose, your parting shot.
My pet peeve this week is that the New York Daily News is attacking Christianity while we have a shooting in San Bernardino where nearly a week later we still have the FBI just starting to look into whether this is a terrorist attack or not. Let's call a spade and at the same time have some respect for peaceful Christians. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Uncapher, your parting shot.
My pet peeve this week is the Maryland State Song, which I had never known refers to Abraham Lincoln as his torch is at thy temple door. And even though this is a blue state, I think that we should be following Abraham Lincoln instead of Jefferson Davis. So I would, the rest of the poem is horrendous as you go through it. So.
Well, nobody knows the words, Robin. That's the whole point.
I didn't know the
No
song.
reason to leave it there.
I didn't know the song.
Not arguing that.
We're too busy attacking war memorials.
Cynthia Rubenstein, your parting shot.
My parting shot is about the holiday season and the season for giving, and a suggestion to families everywhere in the Washington region to check out something called the Catalog for Philanthropy online with your family. Look at 300 worthy small and medium-sized charitable organizations and make a family gift this holiday season.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. Now, everyone knows what a huge football fan I am, and it comes as no surprise. I've been so excited about the Redskins season this year because I've seen real signs of improvement. But I'm not here to talk about the Redskins. There's a much more important football game this weekend. It's the Colgate Red Raiders playing JMU this weekend in the NCAA 1A Division Championship Series. I am so excited. I'm going to drive down I-66 and I'm going to spend tailgating time because my Red Raiders are going to come out victorious. It only happens once every 10 years that they get into this playoff, so I'm very excited. Anyway, Annal, I want to thank you. Next week, I'll be reporting back as to the score and how wonderful it was. And I want to thank everybody in the audience for tuning in to Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show for 21 this week. I'm Casey Aiken, and remember, you can like us on Facebook, you can follow us on Twitter, and you can watch us on YouTube. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.